Um, so what I'm going to do first is I'm going to record this. We're going to go around the very small room right now and talk about ourselves a little bit. I mean, very brief. So say your name and then say something about yourself that's interesting about you. So I am Ellen Smith, the instructor, and I'm a huge Harry Potter fanatic. And right now there's Pottermore going on, which most of you probably don't know about, but it's a website that the author, J.K. Rowling, has put up, and it's not officially open until October, but there's some special invites going out, and I'm going to be one of those special people, but we're just not sure when it's going to happen. And two of my friends have already gotten onto Pottermore, so I'm hoping it'll happen sometime soon, but who knows? So I'm very excited about that. But let's see. Am I recording? Yeah, I'm going to record you because that's the way I'm going to know who you are next time. Okay, so we'll start talking about the syllabus. And the syllabus is online, and I don't really print it off because a lot of what we will do will be online. So, but we'll go over the syllabus today. And if you want to print it off, you can go online to print it off. D2L, which I don't recommend going to D2L through One Stop, but if you really want to, you can. And the reason I don't recommend going to D2L through One Stop is that sometimes One Stop goes down and D2L isn't. So going there directly is better. Another reason, if you're taking a quiz or a test like in an online class you would do, and you're logged in through One Stop will log you out after 15 minutes. So D2L won't. And so it's much better, I think, to go straight to D2L. But the One Stop people would not like me saying that. We're going to start off the syllabus with what can this course do for me. This course is a very demanding course, and I've had a lot of students ask, why do we do this, and why do we do that, and why do we need to do this, when it's not maybe directly related to statistics, but it helps us learn statistics better. And so I thought I would, answer this maybe not in terms of statistics, because students aren't quite as interested in statistics as I am oftentimes, not always, but a lot of times. So I thought, what do the students really want? What do most students really want the course to do for them? Why are they here? And so the reason I think that most students are here is to ultimately get a degree that will help them get a better job, or get coursework that will help them get a better job. So I think a better job or a good job is really kind of the bottom line of what students want from this course, is ultimately a better job. And so this is really from the perspective of what do people look at when they're trying to hire. And people from high school, people with associate's degrees, and people with college diplomas. And so this course will give you 2 items for your portfolio if you're asked for a portfolio. One is the mind maps that we're going to create, and the maps will support that you're hardworking, that you're interested in different learning styles, that you are diverse. And then the statistical research project that we're going to do is a huge research project in 3 parts that you'll do in a group environment. So that will tell employers a lot too, because big projects is probably what you will do in a professional environment. Group work is definitely what you will do in a professional environment. So to prove that you have experience in those 2 things will really be a boon to you when you're trying to get a job. And even if you don't have a portfolio, everyone almost has a resume, and you can always put this as something on your resume that you completed a comprehensive statistical research project as part of a group team effort. Lifelong learning and study skills that you can use in this class to get better grades, but you can also use in all of your future classes to get better grades, and on the job, because employers really look for people who are willing to learn all their lives. And opportunities for developing leadership, because we will have groups. There will be team leaders or group leaders, so you'll have the opportunity to develop leadership and develop the interpersonal team group dynamic skills that you'll need, that so many employers rate as the very top things that they are looking for. And then practical experience with computer-based technologies. This is the number one thing employers are looking for, is people who have computer experience, are able to really work the computer. We will get lots of experience in doing that. Problem solving and critical thinking, that's a given for any sort of math class, particularly this class though, because statistics, in especially our book, presents almost everything in terms of a problem. So it's not an exercise where you're asked to do 3 plus 1 divided by 7 and squared and take the square root or the third root. Or it's not like that. It's like a real world problem. You've got this data and that you've collected, and you need to do a confidence interval. So it's very contextualized and very real world problem solving experience that you will get from this course. An understanding of statistics and research, and this is really just the essence of the course, an understanding of statistics and research that will allow you to critically assess the world around you. And it will allow you to critically assess other research and ask, did they really do this properly? How can we take this seriously, and how seriously can we take it? So what I did was based a lot on a study of what employers are really looking for, and I've highlighted what I think this class does really well. And the top 4 skills that employers are looking for, this class covers really well, I believe. Professionalism, and particularly work ethic, because you will be asked to work very hard in this course. Oral, less so, but particularly written communications. When you do the project, you will be writing and communicating very technical information. Teamwork and collaboration through the group projects that we'll be doing, and of course critical thinking and problem solving skills. So we do in one course all 4 of these top skills. Other skills that are necessary or valuable to employers, they said the basic knowledge and skills are necessary, but to a much lesser degree than being able to look at the applied skills. So what they really care about, not so much do you have the basic skills, but are you able to apply those skills? And so for the applied skills, I've again highlighted what I think this class does well. And critical thinking, problem solving certainly does well. Written communications, teamwork, collaboration, information technology application, that's the computer stuff. 46% of employers rated this skill as excellent. If a person, an applicant, has this skill, that is excellent. And that was more than any other category combined that got excellent. So the next most was like half that got excellent. So this one is by far the most important on what employers are looking for. They're also looking for leadership, creativity, innovation, lifelong learning, self-direction, professionalism, and work ethic. And we don't cover really ethics, social responsibility. We don't cover diversity so much in this course, although you can get that some with your groups, depending on how you choose your groups. And we don't really cover oral communications very much. But this is just one course out of about 40 that you're going to take to get your bachelor's if you're going for that. And so I think that one course covering the majority of these skills that employers are looking for as their top skills for an employee is really awesome. Of course, we're going to work really hard to get all of these, but I think that the hard work that you're going to do in this course is very much worth it. Are there questions so far? Okay. I saw a hand and I'm getting a little... the course objectives, and these apply specifically to this course. What do we want to get out of the end of this course? What is the goal of statistics? Well, certainly we want to understand what statistics is in a very broad sense, and that's what we'll do in the very first chapter, and we'll start that today. We want to describe how data can be gathered and presented in chapters 4 and 2. We want to comprehend and calculate and do something that's called linear regression. And at this point, it's probably pretty hard to understand what linear regression is, but as we go through it, you'll be able to understand more and more. Basically, linear regression tries to see if two variables are associated. For example, height and hair color. If you want to say, well, are height and hair color associated with each other, you might be able to do some sort of regression analysis or that sort of thing. Height and IQ, you might be able to do some sort of regression analysis. So that's what we'll study in Chapter 3. Basic probability stuff, we're going to dip into that barely in Chapter 5. Probability of sampling distributions, we're going to be very immersed in that in Chapter 6 and 7, so we'll do those distributions of probabilities and distributions of samples. Calculate and analyze confidence intervals. Come on in. This is statistics. Okay. Confidence intervals, you might say, for example, I can be 95% certain that the average on the exam is going to be between 65 and 85. So that would be an example of a confidence interval. It's a range of values rather than saying the average on the exam is going to be 75%. You give a range, 65 to 85, and you can give a confidence, how confident you are that it's going to be in that range, where you couldn't give any confidence with a particular exact value. So it's a good way of predicting something and giving a range, and that's what we'll do in Chapter 8. Chapter 9 is very similar. We'll do hypotheses tests. And hypotheses test is where you might say, I'm 95% sure that the average score on the final exam will be at least 65%. So that would be your hypothesis, and then you would go through and look at new data, data you haven't seen before, and try to prove that that hypothesis is true. Now, it wouldn't be the actual data on this semester's final exam, but you would look maybe at past semesters to try to predict what would happen. So, again, I don't expect you to really get this until we get to chapters 8 and 9, but I wanted to give you a high level of where we're going with the course and what we would expect to learn by the end. And then this is kind of a visual map of the course. We're not going to do Chapter 10. We do leave out parts of these various chapters, but we will cover all of Part 1, and that's Chapters 1 through 4, and that talks a lot about gathering data and exploring data and presenting data, that sort of thing. And then in Part 2, we talk a little bit about probability and a lot about the distributions of probability and the distributions of the way samples could go in Part 2. And all of Part 1 and Part 2 lay the foundations and set us up for Part 3. And Part 3 I consider to be really the crucial element of statistics when you use inferential statistics. And it's what almost everyone does when they're doing research and studies. They do confidence intervals and hypothesis tests. And that's the inferential statistics that's in Part 3. So that's sort of a high-level visual map of the course. The required text, and it was really a picture of the covers on this page. That was the first edition, but this is the edition that we're using right now. And so the text, you can either buy it just online for $80, and that's all that you pay. You won't get a hard copy of the book, but you will get every single page of the book in an online format. So I'll show you the book in an online format if you want. And so that's just $80 if you're comfortable with technology, or if you have a computer at home and it's just as convenient to look online. I like to look online rather than the book. I mean, I have the book, but I don't use it nearly as much as I use the online version of the book. And so if you're comfortable with that, that's certainly the cheaper option. And then if you really want a physical book to be able to flip through and you read better with a physical book rather than the screen, although screens are getting better and better these days, $200 to $240 at the bookstore. I do not recommend buying it anywhere other than the bookstore or online, because a lot of times it won't come with the code. And so if you buy it through Amazon, it won't come with the code, and you'll have to spend the $80 plus what you would spend on Amazon. So if it doesn't come shrink wrapped with that My Math Lab, then you're going to have to buy the $80 online. So any questions on that? Yes. I believe so. They don't make any money if you go to the. I did email people, but I didn't email people till Monday night about this. Yeah. Oh. Yeah. Yeah. If you haven't opened it, if it's still shrink wrapped and you haven't opened it, you can take it back, I think. Oh no. Okay. Yes. Right, right. If you've already bought the online version and you're comfortable with that, then you do not need anything else. Any other questions? Okay. The other things that we will require are, or can be, all free to use. So Minitab statistical software, we don't actually use Minitab until the second half of the course. The reason for that is there's a free 30-day trial that I link to. And so you can have the free trial for 30 days, and we only use it for 30 days. So that's all that you need. Plus, if you want, you can use it in the lab downstairs. So the Minitab that we do is not extensive. So if you want to just do it downstairs in the lab, it's installed on every computer down there, and you can do that. So you don't need to purchase Minitab, but we'll be using it. The My Math Lab is packaged with the previous two options. So if you buy the online version, you're buying My Math Lab, but that's the course ID. So that's really the thing that you probably need to write down. Yeah, it comes with a bundle pack also. So there's no reason to purchase Minitab. And then that's the course campus ID. Whether you're purchasing online or whether you purchase the book, you'll need that ID that tells it where my course is. So you'll need that ID. When you purchase this, inside of here you rip out a little strip that will tell you your user ID, or I can't remember, access code. That's what they call it, an access code, so that you don't have to pay the $80 again. So if you have that, you say, yes, I do have an access code, and you enter that access code. The other thing that we need is a TI-83 and 84 calculator, which before this term, people had to go out and spend $100 or $200 to get a calculator unless they were lucky enough to find one at a pawn shop. And even then, it was still, an expense. But this term, we have, for the first time, downstairs Darcy Bateman, and she is the lady that has the window office out into the lobby. In her office, you can go and check out a calculator for the entire term, and they're brand new. So you do have to sign a contract that says you'll bring the calculator back in good and working condition by October 12th, which is after the final exam, the day after the final exam. So you'll have plenty of time to get that back to Darcy Bateman and before the October the 12th. And if you don't get it back, then you'll be charged $125, which is what we paid for those calculators. So that way we'll be able to have 100 next term. So we have 100 this term to give out. We want to be able to have it all term. So, but I think that's an awesome option that you don't have to buy your calculators now. It does not matter. The ones downstairs are 84 plus. Anything that's in the 83 model or the 84 model, there's not a lot of difference in them, especially with statistics. Some of the models have the chi-squared function and some of them don't, but we're not even doing chi-squared anymore. So I'm trying to think. I really think that the functionality is almost identical. Sometimes the button's in a slightly different place, but what they do is exactly the same, especially for statistics. A what? Awk. Yeah. Another thing that I recommend that's not absolutely required, if you don't have a computer at home with speakers, we are going to be watching some videos, and that will be homework actually today, is to watch some videos. In the labs, they don't have any speakers for obvious reasons. If 5 people were playing stuff, it would be quite distracting. But you can plug in the earbuds that go with the iPod or any MP3 player. They will go in the computer in the headphone jack. And so I recommend getting some of those. They're available at the dollar store, some student told me last time. So they're not very expensive, and you can watch the videos and listen to them. So I do recommend that. Any questions? Here is my information. As I said before, I'm Ellen Smith, and my office is right downstairs in room 106. It's like on this, or near that wall over there. And so you can come visit me. I am here 8 to 11 on Monday and Wednesday. But almost every time I'll be available after class. If you let me know, hey, I want to come to your office after class, and I can meet you after class. I'll be here before class, but usually I'm setting up. So if you have a really simple question, before class will be fine. But if you have a really complicated sort of question, then waiting to ask me until after class. Just tell me, you need to see me after class if you want to work on problems. My office hours are to help students. So anytime you have difficulty or getting frustrated, whether it's with the technology for the course or with actual problems or with the projects that we're doing, you can come see me during this time and I'll help you out. So that's what the office hours are for. If you can't come during office hours, email me. We'll try to set something up. If we can talk over the phone or just email each other to answer your questions, we'll do that. But if you need another time to meet with me, I'll try to work something out too. Here is the grading distribution for this course. It's on a standard 10-point scale, meaning 90 to 100 is an A, 80 to 90 is a B, and so on and so forth. Class participation, we'll be doing some things with class participation, and that's going to be 5% of your course. We will be doing homework on the Course Compass system, that's this thing that you're going to register for online, and that will be 10% of your course. The paper homework, and that's homework that you will literally be doing on paper, and that will be turned in as a midterm and the final. I collect it twice, but it should be done all along. And that is going to be a collective 15%, because there are actually 3 different things that will be there. I'll describe that in a few minutes. And Course Compass quizzes, and again, that's on the online system that you register for. That's going to be 10% of your grade. And your group projects that you'll do with your different groups, that will be 15% of your grade. They're quite involved. There are 3 different projects plus a pre-project report that you'll be doing. And so that's 15%. Your midterm exam is 15% of the grade. And your final exam, because it's comprehensive, is 30% of your grade. So a huge chunk of your grade comes in with the midterm and the final exam. But all of this work that we are doing will help prepare you for the midterm and the final exams. That's work that we hope that will prepare you to do a good job on this. Any questions on this? Here are the due dates, and these due dates appear on the front page of Course Compass when you log into your course. Front and center, you'll see all of these due dates. So keep this in mind that if you're ever anxious about what's due when, you can just look at that front page of the course and you'll see, okay, I have to do my orientation homework and Chapter 1 before Sunday by 11:59 p.m. Everything is due, unless you turn it in class, everything is due by midnight. So the orientation homework is quite short, I think 15, 20 minutes maybe. The Chapter 1 homework is pretty short. It's maybe 30 minutes. The Chapter 1 quiz is scheduled so that you don't use more than half an hour if you need that much. And then we'll also be doing a couple of videos that you'll need to watch, but those should take about 15 minutes as well. So not a lot of homework that's due by Sunday, but certainly some homework that's due by Sunday. And then on Tuesday, your pre-project report will be due, and we'll talk more about the group projects when we get into the Course Compass where it describes the group projects. But essentially, you'll be getting in groups of about 5 people, and you'll be deciding what questions you're going to ask your audience, because you will actually go out and survey some people. And you'll decide where you're going to get these people from, where you're going to go and survey them, and you'll be telling me who is in your group, what 5 questions you're going to ask, and exactly how you're going to ask them. And the reason that's due so soon is because you're going to then go out and do that stuff and analyze that data and turn that in by September 4th. And I want to give you feedback on your questions and on how you're asking the questions, because I want it to be as unbiased as possible, and we haven't talked a whole lot about data gathering at this point. So you'll give me your questions. I'll try to turn around and give you feedback as soon as absolutely possible. Since I have class on Wednesday, it will probably be Wednesday night, Thursday night, Friday at the latest, but I'm really hoping that I can turn that around quickly. And so that's a little bit about what the pre-project report is. We'll talk more about that when we get looking at it in Course Compass. And then you'll have Chapter 2 due not this Sunday, but next Sunday, and then Chapter 3 due Thursday of that same week, and then it goes on and so forth. The midterm exams for this class, since you're a Tuesday, Thursday class, yours will be on Tuesday the 13th. So you'll be taking your midterm exam, and you'll be turning in your homework, your paper homework, at that time. You should be doing your paper homework all along, but I'll only collect it at the exam time. This is about course conduct. Of course, we have to follow the student code of conduct as well, but this is particularly what I want from this course. And really, the number 1 item is the most important item, I think. If you do number 1, really 2, 3, and 4 will follow. And number 1 is be respectful to your peers especially, and also to me. So everything that you do should be trying to respect your peers. And I would say this is particularly important when you're talking about your group, when you're working in groups. Last time we had one or maybe two groups that had really bad group dynamics, and a huge part of that was that group members just weren't being respectful of each other. So it's extremely important that you be respectful to everyone, especially everyone in your group. Make a conscious effort, because I've had students complain in the past about how distracting it is when students come in late. So make a conscious effort to be here before 8:30. We'll start at 8:30 exactly. So if you can be here before then and avoid leaving the room until the break, so I'll give you a break about an hour and a half in. And if you can avoid leaving the room except during the breaks and staying in your seat and being back on time from the breaks, that will help enormously. Also, it's very distracting if a cell phone rings. So if a cell phone does ring, and I'm not talking about vibrating, but actually ringing, if a cell phone does ring, I'll assume that whoever's calling wants to talk to the whole class, since they're calling during class time. And we'll all answer the phone together. So, and y'all will have to help me out on this, because if it doesn't look exactly like my phone, I may not know how to answer it. But we'll all answer the cell phone together and talk to whoever's on the line and say hello to them. And then during the exam, cell phones are not allowed at all. And this is very unfortunate, but there's a very good reason, because I've actually had students misuse cell phones during testing, and that was extremely unfortunate. So we're going to avoid that whole situation by just not allowing cell phones during that time. If you have an emergency where you think you might get a phone call, somebody's in surgery, somebody's very ill and at the hospital, somebody is on their deathbed, or something along those lines, then you can give your cell phone to me during the exam on vibrate, of course, and I will answer it if it vibrates. And I will ask if it's an emergency, and if it is, you will be able to take that phone call. But that's the only exception that needs to be. Other than that, we'll have you put all of your cell phone and materials away in a corner of the room so that you don't have any notes or any cell phones or anything on you except paper and the calculator and the computer that you're taking the exam on. So it will be through actually D2L. Are there any questions on that? Yes. 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 Well, I mean, you'll be taking them collectively, but you won't be sharing. Right. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So they're proctored. The quizzes are not proctored. So the quizzes are open book, open notes, open mind maps, and that's the things that we're going to make that will hopefully help you with the quizzes and hopefully help you with the exams too, although you won't be actually using them on the exams. But by looking at them and memorizing these mind maps that we're going to create for each section, you'll hopefully know the material by the time the exam comes around. Disability, yes. Can you get that? Right. There is, and I really won't even collect it until I won't even correct it then. I will just look at it. There is a solutions manual for the odd-numbered exercises. For the even, you won't know, but if you have a question, you can always ask me. Other questions? Disability services, if you have a disability that I should be aware of, please let me know. And if you have one that needs special accommodations, you should also let disability services know. So 221-6230, you can call them and they will give you instructions of the paperwork that you need to fill out and what you need to do and what you need to bring them. And then you and I could sit down for a conference and talk about the needs that you have and what we can do to accommodate those needs. So 221-6230. Those of you who are in E-sections, we have a super E-section leader, Katrina, and she is in charge of the E-sections. Let that be known. I have nothing, no control, no authority in the E-sections whatsoever. Even though my name's on it, I wish they wouldn't do that. I wish they put Katrina. Katrina. It's all Katrina. And James Sanders is in charge of Katrina. So I have no authority in that. And I really see it, although not all instructors see it this way, but I really see it as disjoint from this class. So when I talk about the amount of time that's needed for the class, and I talk about the assignments, when I talk about how this class is graded, I'm only talking about the lecture part of this class, not the E-Lab. And Katrina will explain how the E-Lab works and how you can get that removed. And one person looks confused. If you don't have an E after your section, what is this, 52E, or is it 50? 50. So if you're registered for 50, section 50, you're not registered for the E-Lab that's after this class from 11 to 2, 11 to 1, 105. So yeah, if you're not registered for 52E, then you don't need to worry about this. But Katrina is the one to ask. If you're on her list, you need to worry about it. If you're not on her list, you don't need to worry about it. So Katrina is the woman there. That's Tuesday, Thursday. Yeah. If you're in 52, if you're not in the E-Lab, then it's just 8:30 to 11. The E-Lab is for students who have scored lower on the ACT or the Compass, and they need the algebra background. That's not so very essential in this course, but there are some algebra elements that you need to know and that they're taught in the E-Lab. So that you should have been advised before that you had a deficiency and you had to register for the E-section. If you weren't advised that way, then chances are you're in 52. I think this class is half and half. Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's probably, yeah, half the class is going to go to the lab afterwards. And again, Katrina, when we break, you can ask her. The supplements that we'll use online are going to be D2L, and this is, you can type into the web address bar, elearn.apsu.edu. That's your direct link to D2L. And in D2L, we'll use the discussions if you have a question between classes, and we'll use particularly the drop boxes to turn in your projects, and we'll use the surveys so you can evaluate your peers in your project group. And then in Course Compass is where most of your time will be because that's the online homework and the online quizzes. The supplementary materials I'm going to show you mostly in Course Compass, but most of them are also in D2L if you wanted to look in D2L. I just think that you're probably going to spend more time on Course Compass, so that's why I go through that. Any questions so far? Okay, I'm going to show you Course Compass. Well, let's look at D2L first. So once you log into D2L, and if you go to the elearn.apsu.edu, on the right side it will give you instructions for how to log in if you've never logged in. So you can read that, and it talks about how you would know your username or to find out your username, and how to know your password if you've never logged in before. And then once you log in, it will actually look like, well, it will sort of look like this. You probably won't have these little tabs, and you won't have multiple semesters. But you will have Fall 1, and you will have Mathematics 1530 with all these dashes, because I've put all the sections together. So this class is 50 and 50E. My other class is 52 and 52E. So, but they're all in one D2L area and all in one course census area too. This first page is set up with a lot of introductory material, a lot of stuff that I've already shared with you. There is a D2L video in case you forget sort of how to navigate D2L, aren't familiar with it, so you could watch that video. And then we'll be using discussion, and there's already a class introduction thread, so you can go here and post an introduction. When you're in here, compose is what will let you ask a question. You'll type in the subject, you'll type in your message, and then you'll click post. And just close it if you decided you didn't want to post. And then there are all these things. You can also click reply on here, and that'll pop up a message where you can reply to someone if you want to. That's discussion. Here is the Dropbox, and I won't be able to see the drop boxes. You'll be able to see it, but basically when you click on this link, it will allow you to submit a file. And so you can upload your pre-project report that's in Microsoft Word that way. And there's an actual video that I'll show you in a second that shows you how to do that. I have to be impersonating a student in order to do that, so I can't really do that at the moment. And then, let's see, what else do I need to show you? Groups, you can self-register for groups if you want to. And that would be under the Groups tab. You could sign up for a group. But the best way is to talk with students during the break and see if they want to be in your project group. It's really important to choose students that are like you, that have the same work ethic that you do, and have the same level of responsibility, because you're going to be very dependent on those students for your grade. There will be individual grades for the project, but they will first be based off the group grade that I give the whole group for the project. So it's important to choose, really important to choose a good group. And if you let me know that during the break after class, or you can email me, but certainly you need to email me before Sunday at midnight, or no, it's not due till Tuesday at midnight. So email me soon, though, that way you can start doing stuff together and get your pre-project report done by Tuesday at midnight. And then the other link is surveys. So I do individual grades on the projects based on how much you worked on the project, and what you did will be written in the report itself. The last paragraph describes what each individual group member did to participate in the project. But it will also come from evaluations by your peers. So for each project, for Project 1, for Project 2, and for Project 3, you will submit evaluations of your peers. And so you will click on here, and I'll show you what it looks like from your perspective. And so you would fill in the first group member's name, whoever you wanted to put first, and you would rate them on a scale of, was he or she always available? Did she contribute to group efforts? Did he give quality work? Did she contribute substantial amounts of time in working on a group project? Was he easy to work with? All of these sorts of questions you can answer just by filling in the bubbles quickly. If there's something that you really want to say personally about this person, please do so. And there's a box that you can fill in and tell me anything that you want to tell me about the person you are working with. And then there are lots of different blanks, so you can do this for lots of different group members. And so that's the surveys. Really, that's kind of all of D2L. This is Course Compass. When you log into Course Compass and choose this course, this is what you will see. And front and center, again, is this timeline of when everything is due so that you can keep up and make sure, okay, I did the orientation homework, I did Chapter 1, and I did the Chapter 1 quiz, so I'm good to go until Tuesday. So you can keep up with every single due date in the course right here. And then below that is a video that shows you a lot of what I'm about to show you, but it might show you some more details, or if you forget, you can watch this video. And then this link is important on your computer the first time you use your computer. Now, not the computers downstairs because they should have everything installed, but the first time you use your computer, you can do this My Math Lab installation wizard to check and see if you have everything that you need. It says, yes, I have Adobe Flash. Yes, I have Adobe Reader. Yes, I have Apple QuickTime Player. So I have everything that I need except for this optional test gen plugin. It says optional, ask your instructor. You will need this. So this term, all of the quizzes will be in test gen, and so you will need this plugin. You click check your version, and a box pops up. If this box does not pop up, you would click install and go through that process of installing that. If, see, all of these check marks are checked, if they were red, not checked, it would have install now right here, and you could click that to install. So not only does it check to make sure your system has everything it needs, it also gives you very convenient install links that you can install what it needs. So when you're doing this, if you're not doing it on the computer downstairs, then you'll need to have administrative sorts of privileges to your computer so you can install these little plugins. Any questions on that so far? Yes. Unless you tell me your groups, and I can do that for you. Other questions? I'm recording this class, so if you miss anything, I'll be posting a link to it, and I'll show you where, and you can go back and listen. So lecture captures right down here is where I'll be posting a link to that. Any other questions? And you can always email me. The next link is the homework. Oh, wait, I should talk about the rest of this. There are going to be tutoring opportunities, but we don't know when. Katrina may be a tutor. Katrina may not be a tutor. Yesterday, Jennifer Graham, she's my SLA leader for the other class, said that she would be willing to do a couple of hours, so I think that she may be doing some of the tutoring, but we just don't know when yet. So I don't know when that's going to happen. I also don't have a technology tutor yet. I have emailed someone, and I'm going to give her till this afternoon, and then I'll start calling other people to try to get a technology tutor. But we do have money for a technology tutor, and I really want you to have one, and I want you to have one by next week. So by Sunday or Monday, you should have this filled in with your technology tutor information. And the technology tutor will be available at various hours. We're hoping for about 8 hours a week. And she will be in the lab downstairs, or he. And they will be able to help you with D2L, help you with Course Compass, help you with your calculator, and help you with Minitab. That's primarily what that tutor is for. But I'm trying to choose someone who's also quite good at statistics and who has had me, so they'll know what you're going through, know what the problems are, know what you'll need to do to solve it. So they would also, you want to be the technology tutor? You will? Oh, okay. We will talk. We will talk. And so that will be nice. And we'll set up those hours and get that on there. Yay. And then here is your time division for, I organized it by chapters because that's kind of how I want you to work these things, even though the paper homework's not due until right before the exam. I'm expecting that you will do the paper homework along with the online homework. So in orientation, it probably doesn't even take an hour, but I wanted to do whole numbers. Chapter 1, it may take a little more than an hour, but these two together probably no more than 2 hours of homework. Chapter 2, on the other hand, is a different story. Chapter 2 is much longer. It has not so much hard stuff because usually you've learned the stuff in 11th or 12th grade or 10th grade, but you may have forgotten it. So it's things like mean, median, and mode, which most people do remember because you talk about them like forever. But then also box plots that a lot of people forget but have seen before, pie charts, stem and leaf plots, all of that sort of thing is in Chapter 2. And because there's so much in there, it takes 6 hours. Chapter 3 is actually a little bit difficult, and it's probably the first chapter that we get to the difficult material. It's not too long, though, so about 4 hours. Chapter 4 is a reprieve of sorts, so it's pretty easy and nice. It's easy on the homework, and it's been easy on the quizzes in the past because it's open notes. But for the exam, students have struggled with Chapter 4, and that's one of the reasons we're doing the mind maps that I'll talk about in a minute. That'll help you remember the Chapter 4 material so that hopefully you will do well on that on the exam. Project 1 is pretty involved because you've got to do the pre-project report. You've got to go out and gather your data, and then you've got to do a lot of analysis on that data and turn that in. So 7 hours there. Chapter 5, we're only actually doing the first 2 sections of Chapter 5, so that's pretty short, and it's not too difficult. I know I say difficult on there. I need to change that because it's not too bad. And then the midterm review, I have 60 questions that will help prepare you for the midterm that will be enormously like what you'll see on the midterm. And so doing those questions, studying your mind maps, making sure you know how to do absolutely everything and do it well, that will take about 9 hours, which seems like a lot of time, but if you consider that the midterm exam is 15% of your final grade for the course, I don't think that's too much time. And then 6 hours for Chapter 6. Chapter 6 is a tough chapter. It's really, if you get Chapter 6, I think that it will make your way a lot easier for subsequent chapters, but it's a tough chapter to get. Chapter 7 is, again, a nice little reprieve, short and sweet. Then Project 2, pretty long, still there. Not quite as long as the first project, but still pretty long. Chapter 8 is where we do confidence intervals, so it's our introduction to inferences. That's going to be long and difficult, quite difficult. But if you get Chapter 8 the first time around, then it will make your life so much easier when you go to Chapter 9 and when you look at the final exam. So Chapter 8, I say 6 hours on there. Chapter 9, 5 hours. Even though we've cut a lot out, it's difficult stuff that's in there. And Project 2 is just 4 hours. The final exam, again, this is 30% of your entire grade for the course, and so I have 16 hours there. There are, I think, 84 questions on that review. It's a comprehensive exam, so you may even want to look at your midterm review in addition to your final exam review. You'll want to look at the mind maps for all 9 chapters, and you'll want to be really, really prepared. So that is about 16 hours there. Are there any questions so far? That's a lot of time, I know. We'll talk about more about why we need that much time in a second. Let's see, this link to the syllabus is right here. So anytime you need the syllabus, you're in Course Compass, you can go to it, and that gives you everything you need in the syllabus. Calculator help. Every time we do a chapter that involves computational sorts of things that there's a calculator function for, I will show you on this board how to use the calculator to do that. And so I'll teach you that. But if you forget anything, there are videos for every single calculator function that we use, and you can go and watch the videos for them. So that's the calculator help page. So did I skip homework hotline? Homework hotline, right now we don't have tutor times in place, but even tonight you can call the homework hotline. It's open 6 hours, I think, or something like that every day, and you can call them and talk to them. They will ask you, what have you tried so far? So don't call them before you've worked the problem. Try to work the problem. Try to look at the solutions manual if it's an odd number problem. So really try to look at that stuff before you call for help, and then you can call them for help, and they will help you with any paper homework problem that you have that's from the textbook, any online problem that you have that's on Course Compass. They'll help you with any of that. So feel free to take advantage of this. You just need to sign up, but instructions are here on how to sign up. The formula card, on the exam, you will have, and it may not load, may not even try to load. It may not have the www that, I'll have to look at that. But I will fix that link to the formula card, and the formula card is a sheet of formulas. And it has calculator tips, too, abbreviated versions of what buttons to push on your calculator. And you get to use that for your exam. So I'll try to fix it before next week, and especially next week, you can print that out and start using it on your homework and on your quizzes. And that way you'll get familiar with where everything is on the formula card and what it says, because you will get to use that formula card on the exam. That's the only notes I allow you to have, are the notes that are on the formula card. And then objectives and tasks. If you click on that, you'll get sort of a map of all of the different chapters. And if you click on any chapter, you'll get the objectives of that chapter and the tasks, the things that you need to do for that chapter. But particularly important is under objectives and tasks is where I've put all of the lecture notes for you to print out. So what I cover when I start covering chapter 1 and what you watch on the videos, you don't need to write down everything that's on the slide. It's already written down for you. You can just print out and write on top of it. And, of course, do your mind maps on a separate sheet, and we'll talk about mind maps in just a second, actually. But if you go here and you click on chapter 1 and click print lecture notes for chapter 1, it may take a while to load, and it may not load at all on mine. It looks like it's not going to load at all. But you would have the lecture notes come up. Let's see if that'll refresh it. Probably not. Not sure why it's not showing up. It said I had Adobe Reader installed. But that's the objectives and tasks. The next link is videos, and it looks much the same on the front end, but when you click it, instead of having the objectives and tasks, it's going to have the videos. And we actually won't get finished with Chapter 1 today. We'll try to get as far as we can, but I wanted to do more in detail of how to do things, how to set things up, because I thought that was more important to talk about in person. And then you can watch the 1.2 with George W. there and the 1.3 video with the guy looking off to the landscape of technology. And so those are what's going to be part of your homework assignment, to watch those 2 short videos. And the material for Chapter 1 isn't too difficult, so I thought that would be a nice compromise, to spend more time on how to do stuff, showing you how to do stuff and get started, and then let you watch those videos on your own rather than reading all the material. Katrina? No, I could try to make some. Would you like me to make some? Okay, I'll try to make some. I think I would be able to batch PDF them and do that. Put a link somewhere. Okay. Email me if you don't mind, because I forget stuff. That's my thing whenever anybody asks me to do something, because I forget a lot of things that I promised to do. But if you email me, I don't mark the email as unread until I do it, so I'm much better about it if you email me. So that's lecture and video. The grade book will tell you your grades so far through the course. I've only dipped into these and not really done much. Nothing on Chapter 1 and just a little bit on the orientation just to make sure it was working. And so I have very low scores here. And if I click Show Overall Score, then it will show me my score overall, which is very low, and show me my progress and that sort of thing. So that's under Gradebook. And I will even enter like your project grades in here. And so you can keep up with your grades for the course the whole time during the course at any one time. As long as I'm up to date on grading projects, it will be in here. Online homework, if you click on it, you can do the orientation homework and Chapter 1, and I'll show you what Chapter 1 looks like. So there are only 4 questions, so it won't take you very long to do these. And then there aren't very many questions in the textbook that you have to do. So this is an example of Chapter 1. I can do clear all to clear my answers, and then I can type answers in here. And then I can check my answer, and it will tell me if it's correct, or in this case, since I just randomly guessed, it's not correct. And it may even give me a little hint. Also, for huge hints, you can click the View an Example button, and it will show you exactly the same problem with different numbers. And you can click Continue a whole bunch of times, and it will show you how to get all of the answers for this example problem that are being asked. So that's a really, really nice tool there to help you know how to do these problems. And that's really the reason why we use Course Compass, is this online homework that has View an Example. People also use Help Me Solve This. It's a little less useful, but it sort of baby steps you through the process. And then the textbook link will open the page of the textbook that talks about this problem. So this problem is from section 1.1, so it opens to section 1.1. I can read this page. I can scroll next to read the next page. And then just keep reading and scrolling until I've read the entire section. And then there's a little activity that I probably don't need to read. But that's really nice. So if you're wondering where is this information in my book, you can click the textbook link. And we don't use StatCrunch that much. The print option is there, but I would recommend only using that if you're having a particularly difficult problem that you want to show somebody else. So print it off and bring it to class, show me, that sort of thing. But it is an option that's there. And that's pretty much the online homework. In order to do the quizzes, you need to score at least 80% first on your online homework before it will let you into a quiz. So when I click on quiz chapter 1, it's going to tell me you don't have permission to do that because, well, it doesn't say that, does it? Let's see what it does. I have not done that right. I need to go back and fix chapter 1. Normally it will say you do not have permission to do this. Yes. Uh-huh. Yes. 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 Every time you do check answer, it will give you new numbers. So it will tell you the right answers, probably, or it may not even tell you the right answers, but it will give you a different problem that's the same style. So you can redo problems until you get 100% even, over and over and over again. That's a good point. So please try to get 100%. Click new exercise or similar exercise to keep doing the same sort of problem to get 100%. Any other questions so far? And then, let's see, paper homework. The paper homework involves really kind of 3 different styles of paper homework. We will do mind maps, we will do textbook problems, and we will do the review, the exam review. So here are a list of all of the problems from the textbook, and then also mind maps for sections 1, 2, and 3. Mind maps for sections 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and so on and so forth. And then for the midterm, you have this midterm exam review, and I doubt that will load because that's a PDF, but if it did load, it would be 60 problems, yes. The mind map, all of these are paper problems. So you'll do all of this on paper. It's not online. So we'll do a mind map today, and we'll turn it in at the beginning of class next time, and I'll give you feedback on that. And I'm about to talk about, let me actually go ahead and start talking about exactly what mind maps are, because most people aren't familiar with mind maps at all. So this is, hold on, this is a video. And it's kind of an infomercial, but the actual mind maps are awesome. The mind map is on anything I want to thinking, contemplation, cognition, remembering, creating. The mind map was the ideal tool for that. Mind mapping is straightforward and fast. We start in the center of a blank page. We connect branches to the central image and connect second and third level branches to the first and second, and so on. The brain is radiant. It sits centrally and it flows down in all directions. Branches are curved and good rather than straight lines. They are organic and free-flowing, so both the structured and uniform. The branches on a mind are the reflection of the way the brain thinks. So when you think of anything, it
excuse me, chair. You have your picture, and then you have your associations of that. The brain thinks by imagination and association. The reason why traditional note-taking and lists and lines doesn't work, actually counterproductive, is because it doesn't have the association. If you don't have association, you don't have connection. If you don't have connection, you don't have memory, and you don't have thinking. In a mind map, the branches are always curved. Curved is linear. Reason why? Nature is curvilinear. And if all these branches are straight, it is literally rigid, similar, and therefore boring. The brain will very quickly get unhappy with a whole bunch of rigid straight lines. It's absorbed and freed by the beauty of curvilinear. We add one word for each branch. One of the important points in structure in a mind map is to have one word per branch. Why? Because if you have one word, that one word with all its associations is free. If you put them together, you're making it more rigid. And very simple, for example, if you were a mind mapper and you want to put Tony Buzan, if you put Tony Buzan, you stuck them together with glue. But if you put Buzan and then Tony, you've got the freedom to radiate out my father, my mother, my brother, the history of the name, etc. So the single word per line gives you much more freedom, much more creativity, much more power. Ideally, the length of the word should be the length of the branch, for the very simple reason that if this word here is then placed next to this word here, and the branch and the word of the same line, and the meeting point is very close. So the two words are in space close, i.e. they're connected. If you've got one word, this little word there, a long branch, and a little word over here, a long branch, the words are disconnected. We don't use color in notes traditionally because we are told not to in school. All the research says exactly the opposite. We love color, and studies on the university show people who use color and image in their imagination when they are learning and trying to remember. Inevitably, do better with those who don't. Would you think that? A lot of language is keywords and give an ability to do people or feel image is a picture is worth without.
Sorry. Thank you.
We are rich. We are Darwin.
If y'all will all share this, you all. If y'all will all share this. Okay, so in a little bit we're going to do a mind map of section 1.1, but I want to show you what a student did last term. And the reason I'm going over this in so much detail is that last year when we did mind maps, students were very resistant to the idea of doing this sort of thing, the mind map sort of thing, and because it's so foreign from what they've done in the past, that they just really didn't like it. So how do you take notes normally? If you do it in a cloud sort of way and not an outline sort of way, then yeah. So when you take notes, we take them usually in a very linear format, or at least that's the way that everybody was taught sort of an outline of what the speech was or an outline of what the lecture was about. But it turns out that that's just one way of taking notes, and it's not even the best way. By far, it's not the best way. I was sold, even though Tony is kind of cheesy and narcissistic in his love of himself when he posts that picture of himself. I was really sold on mind maps when I went to a conference and heard a lecture from one of the best teachers in the nation, nationally recognized for her teaching ability. She told that in her student success course, she would present lots of different note-taking. This method, the mind mapping method, and the traditional linear method, and about 3 or 4 other different types of note-taking. And she would put people in groups after she presented all of the different styles, and she assigned the groups different note-taking methods. So she said, this group you will do mind maps, this group you will do linear, this group you will do option D and C and D. And so she had all these different groups doing note-taking for 1 week, and she would lecture, and then she gave a quiz. And group mind map every single semester. So she'd given this for 15 or 20 years, I think, or a very long time. Every single semester, the mind mapping group would outscore all of the other groups. Every single term. So this is why we are doing it. And when I was giving exams before I started using mind mapping, the thing I noticed was that students missed Chapter 4 questions and Chapter 1 questions. And those chapters have no computation in them whatsoever, no math in them whatsoever. They're all terms and definitions and concepts and ideas. So I was really flabbergasted that students weren't having as much problems with math as they were with the terms and the definitions. So that's when I decided that we really needed an assignment that would reinforce those terms and those definitions and those concepts and those ideas, and the mind map is the perfect thing to do that. So we will draw a map for each section of the course that we go over, and you can do it while I'm lecturing on it, and that's why I've given you the paper and the pencils right now, so that as I lecture, and we'll take a break before I do so, but as I lecture over 1.1, you'll be able to draw your mind map out. And the center of your section 1.1 should be the name of the section itself. So how you can investigate data 1.1. And then you should branch off for every major term and every major concept in that chapter. So it talks about data, so you make a branch for data and you color it and you draw pictures that might represent data to you. You make a branch for statistics and you color it, and there are 3 types of statistics: designing, analyzing, and translating, and you draw pictures for all of those things. And then there are studies. There are 3 types of studies: designing, describing, and inferring, and you draw pictures for all of that, and that's your mind map on 1 sheet of paper for section 1.1. And then you would do the same thing for section 1.2 with your central idea and all of the different terms and all of the pictures and all of the color. So your central idea is the name of your section and the number of your section, different terms on the different branches, and pictures for all of the terms. I'm sorry? Yeah, this is the assignment that's part of the paper homework, and it's the mind map. So for one section's on 1 sheet of paper. So 1.1 would be on 1 sheet, and then 1.2 on another sheet, or the back of 1 sheet, I guess, if you don't draw darkly. And then 1.3, 1.4, and so on. Or not, there's not 1.4. The way I will grade this, there is a rubric at the bottom, and I need to fix the formatting on this. But basically, 1 point will be given for each mind, well, 3 points total will be given for each mind map. Each page will be worth 3 points. And 1 point will go for is the central idea in the center, the name of the section, and does it fill the entire page? So one section per page. And another point will be given, is it hand-drawn using a variety of colors with related ideas and terms connected with curved lines. And then the third point will be given if every single term and every significant idea is represented on your mind map. There won't be a whole lot for each section, but as long as you have all of the terms and all of the big ideas listed on the mind map. And again, if you have questions of did I get everything, you can look at the example, and that's really what I just showed you for chapter 1, but it has 1 through 6 here in the example. So if you want to do your mind map and then compare it to the example, you can, but that's how that will be graded. Are there any other questions? Okay, we will take a break now, and then we'll come back and wrap up on Course Compass and some other things. You may want to talk to some people and see if you can find some group friends. We'll start back at 10:05. So we've got our solutions manual, and the solutions manual is great for the paper homework out of the textbook because every odd problem is going to be in the solutions manual, and you can just click and look at not just the answer to the question, but a detailed process of how to work the problem. If the solutions manual is not enough, or if it's an odd number problem or an even number problem and you can't find one similar to it, and you still have questions, you can always post your questions on D2L, and I'll respond on there. Or you could use the homework hotline, or you could come by during my office hours, or the tutors that we have set up when we get them set up. So there are lots of options of help for you. If you need help, be sure to take advantage of them. Here is a direct link, and this is great for those of you who don't have the physical textbook. So ebook direct link, you can click on it, and the book will pop up. You can scroll through pages, or you can just go through content. So here's the scrolling through pages. You can make it bigger. You can make it smaller. You can even print pages, but I don't recommend printing the whole book. But if you wanted to print your homework out, some students do that, print the homework pages. And a lot of students just kind of look at the homework pages and work their homework while their computer's up. And you can go through contents to jump to stuff first. So, for example, if I wanted to go to chapter 6, I would go under part 2. I would try to go there. And chapter 6, I need to align this. And say I wanted to do the chapter problems, and I could click on the chapter problems. It would take me straight to the first page that has the chapter problems on there. So that's the electronic version of the book that's on Course Compass. You can also navigate through ebook content. And then here is projects, and this is a detailed description of your project. So you can click on Project 1, and that will have the pre-project report for Project 1 that's due by Tuesday at midnight, and we'll talk a little bit in detail about that now. So the statistics project is to give you a real-life experience with doing statistics. You're going to design your survey. You're going to decide how you're going to carry out your survey. You're going to go out and collect all of the data for your survey, and then you're going to come back and do analysis on that survey. For Project 1, the analysis is going to be with your calculator and doing some charts and stuff like that in Microsoft Word, and you'll turn in that project that will be really just calculator and Word type stuff. For Projects 2 and 3, you'll do a combination of Word and Minitab, so you'll bring in graphs and charts and use data from Minitab. And so to start off with, I have a pre-project report. And again, like I said earlier, the reason I have this due so quickly is so that you can get started on the data gathering, because you can't do any analysis or anything really until you've gathered your data. But I want to approve the data that you're going to gather before you actually go out and do it, because you might ask things in a way that are biased, and if that's the case, I want to be sure to correct that and give you feedback and suggestions on how to change it before you go out and collect all that data, because that's a huge process. You will need to ask at least 30 people to do your 5-question survey, and so I want you to be sure to do that in the best way possible before you go out and collect that data. So the pre-project report is really just short. It requires just a few things. I want the names of all of the group members. That's number one. And clearly identify who the leader of the group is, or the leader for at least the first project. So list all those names and who the leader of the project is. And then number two, I want you to tell me when you met. And you might meet just right now after class. But tell me the date and the time and when and where, and if it was in person, but almost all of the face-to-face classes will be meeting in person. Or you could meet by teleconferencing or whatever with Skype and with Pronto or on the phone, that sort of thing if you choose to. But most of the time it will be in person, but I just want you to say that. Also, 3 and 4 are probably the most important. I want you to tell me how you're going to survey and what questions you're going to ask. So give me a paragraph that describes who you're going to be asking the questions to. I saw one person who was doing a Girl Scout type thing yesterday, and so she's probably going to only survey girls, or not girls, but women, because you need to stick with adults. So that's one stipulation, just survey adults, and that's because minors are considered sort of sensitive to asking questions. So who will you survey? When? So tell me what time of day, where, what location. For example, the Girl Scout, if she wants to look at the military population, then a good place might be the PX or the post office on base, or ideally, the gate coming in and out, because everybody has to come in and out of the gate, but they probably wouldn't let you do that. Definitely wouldn't let you do that. Stand there with the gate man and say, "Got 5 questions for you." Yeah. That's an excellent idea, but it brings up an excellent problem, actually. So if you're asking on Facebook, for example, then you're only going to get people who know you that are going to respond, right? Because they're only your friends. Yeah. Yeah. Even with that, you're going to have some people who are more likely to be on that site than others. So people who are online more often, people who are closer to you perhaps, and it's voluntary. So whenever it's voluntary, and that means that they're only going to respond if they have something to say. So if you're asking questions, like, for instance, do you think that Austin P should give us free textbooks? Then you're only going to have people who are really passionate about that who are going to respond. Passionate maybe one way or the other, but only the people who are most passionate are going to respond in an online scenario, and that's pretty much ever. Right. They might do that, but they would be 100 times more likely to do that in an online scenario than they would in a face-to-face scenario. So what we're talking about, we can't ever get bias completely out, but we're talking about minimizing bias. And so I've never had students who were told that they weren't allowed to do this. You do ask permission, and there's certainly some people who aren't going to agree. The best success that students had last term was at a gas station because people are there, they have to fill their gas tank, they have to spend 5 minutes or however long it takes to fill. Your survey's quicker than that. So they had a lot of success. Nobody turned them down at a gas station. They didn't feel like they were being bothered because they had to stand there anyway and make sure their pump didn't overflow. So almost everybody gets gas. Nobody turns you down, so that means you're not really just looking at volunteers. You're getting the whole population. So that's a really good way that has the least amount of bias. I mean, there's still going to be some bias there. You can never get it perfect, but we're talking about minimizing bias. And when we get into Chapter 4, we'll talk a lot about how online surveys are really a lot more biased than the face-to-face surveys, almost so that you don't even want to consider anything from an online survey. Yes. You decide the subject matter. So it's whatever you want to ask. The girl in the last class was talking about Girl Scouts because she had been in Girl Scouts and that's something that mattered to her. So she was going to ask women if they'd been in the Girl Scouts, if their children had been in the Girl Scouts, how long, that sort of thing. In the past, other people have done a lot of military-related things. How many years have you served? Are you going to retire military? Are you satisfied? That sort of thing. The content of the questions is completely determined by you as long as it's not sensitive stuff. So I would say stay away from politics and religion, sexual orientation, that sort of thing. Stay away from anything that's really sensitive, but everything else is fair game. If you look at my example, I asked all these Harry Potter questions. And I was surveying as people would come out of the theater from Harry Potter, so they would at least be familiar with Harry Potter. So I really want you to own this data. I want you to love this data. I want you to care about the outcomes. So choose something that you're passionate about. Tuesday by midnight. So you could at least have your groups today, I would like. But you could say, let's meet Tuesday after class, and we do this and turn it in. So you will have some time Tuesday, or you can meet sometime this weekend. No. The questions have to be written down, and I'll approve the questions or give you feedback on the questions. Most of the time, I do ask you to change one or two things. Written down like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And exactly what you're going to say when you ask the question. There will be 5 questions, and that's the next thing. So after you tell who, what, when, where, how, you're going to say what your 5 questions are. And the 5 questions can be pretty much anything, but there need to be 2 questions that have number answers. Quantitative is what we call it. So something like gas mileage, how many miles you travel a day, how many children do you have that are in Girl Scouts, some answer like that. And then at least 2 questions need to be non-numerical answers like, are you going to retire military, or how satisfied are you with the military? And if you ask an open-ended question, give them some choices. That way you can sort of group it better. Well, it depends on the question, but sometimes it's better to give them a set of choices if it's an open-ended sort of question like that. But it could be absolutely anything, unless it's a number. If it's a number, let them go ahead and give you numbers. We have ways of grouping numbers. Okay. Any other questions about that? So Tuesday by midnight, you will be turning in a Microsoft Word file It's going to have a list of your group members. The group leader is going to be identified. You're going to tell when, where you met, and the location, in person, whatever. And you're going to tell how you're going to collect the data. And I'm going to go to this gas station, and we're going to ask this many people, and we're going to ask these exact questions. So tell me all of that sort of thing. What people have done in the past for this is they've sort of decided the questions together, and then they collect the questions together, or at least say you get 10 questions, you get 10 questions, you get 10 questions. You need at least 30 people to answer your questions, all 5 questions. No. And it's really best to try to tell them right up front, this is, I only have 5 questions for you, and it's for a class project that's not going to be published anywhere. So they know you're not trying to sell them anything, and they know you're going to be quick. And we want it to be anonymous. We want them to feel, if it's not anonymous, they may not be as honest. And also some ways that you can phrase questions. I saw an email from yesterday's students that the person wanted to do, how often do you change your toothbrush? And she said right before that question, she said, dentists recommend changing your toothbrush every 3 months. And I would recommend not telling them that before asking them the question, because it makes it, 3 months, yeah, totally. Certainly don't do it less than that. And that's the sort of feedback I'd want to give you on the questions and why I want to see them ahead of time. And I don't know, that wasn't officially her question, so she might have just not wanted to tell that, but was thinking about that and comparing it to that. Questions? Yeah. So you need to have all of these items. So a list of the members, who the group leader is, date, time, members present. So as long as you answer all of this stuff with your 5 questions and telling me exactly how you're going to collect the data, that's all I need. No, it doesn't. This one says in a paragraph, but it doesn't have to be. I mean, certainly the questions should be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. No. One person has to submit the form. So the one person that you decide will take notes, type this up, and submit it, you may want to give them less work on the rest of the project 1 to compensate. Any other questions? Yes. Yes, and the link is right here, and because it's in PDF, I know it's not going to open here, but you can click on this link. And it should open downstairs, and if it doesn't, let me or Katrina know, and we'll try to make a list of the stuff that Thomas needs to fix. He's my husband, and he's the computer tech, and he won't be here today, unfortunately, but he'll be here Tuesday, I hope. Be better. And so we'll try to fix the stuff that needs to get fixed on the computers. Any other questions? Let's see. Lecture captures, so if you miss a lecture or miss part of a lecture and you want to go see it, you can go here. And right now I have just all the stuff from Spring 2. I will label it Fall 1. And it may be this class or it may be my Monday, Wednesday class that I decide to put up. I probably won't put up both, but I'll be saying the same thing essentially in this class that I say in the other class. Just, I'll be talking about the exam dates being on Monday instead of Tuesday, but essentially everything else is the same assignments, almost all of the same due dates, so, except for the exam. And you probably won't need these links, but they're there for you, the Minitab manual, data files from the CD, multimedia library, and an optional study plan if you want supplemental stuff. to sort of fortify you on any particular concept. And that is Course Compass. We'll talk about how to pass statistics. Before, when I first started teaching statistics, I thought it was very intuitive on how to pass statistics. But what I found was there were a lot of students who really didn't know why they failed at the end of the semester when they failed. And so I started giving this little mini lecture on how to pass statistics, and I think it really did help people to know what it took to pass this course, because it does take quite a bit. So how does one pass statistics? There are 3 things that you need to do in order to pass statistics, and the first one should be obvious, but maybe not quite so obvious. Oh, pretend you didn't see that. And it's study. And so, of course, the second thing, y'all already saw that, didn't you? Is study, and you might guess the third thing too, right? Yeah, but it's actually studying in 3 different ways. So, and these are the 3 ways. You need to put in the time, and that's essential. I mean, if you do not put the time into this course, and I'll talk just a second about what the time is, but you already saw sort of a delineation of what we needed, how much time was required for this course, a lot of time. If you don't put in the time, there's really just no way you can pass this course. So 55% of your course comes from the work that you do in the projects, in the paper homework, in the online homework, in the quizzes. The quizzes you're not going to even be allowed to take until you get 80% on the homework. So there's no way that you can pass this course just by being smart. You've got to put in the time. You've got to do the work. And number 2, study sincerely. Because so much time is required for this course, people are often very tempted to skimp on the homework, especially the Course Compass homework. It's sometimes multiple choice, and when it's that, you can just select the wrong answer and do check answer until you get it right and not even read the question. You could do that, but then when it comes to the quizzes, when it comes to the exams, you're not going to be prepared, and the quizzes are 10% of your grade. The exams are 45% of your grade, so there's no way you're going to pass as well if you don't really know your stuff. So not only do you need to put in the time, but you need to do it sincerely. You need to give a sincere, honest effort on your paper homework, on your mind maps, on your exam review, on your Course Compass. So do everything and do it sincerely as well as you can. And then the third thing that you will need to do is review for the exam. I have made out a review for you. If you know that review backward and forward, if you know your mind maps and have done them well, backward and forward, you will do very well on the exams. And again, the exams are 45% of your grade, so they're critical for you to do well on in order to do well for the course. So those are the 3 ways that you can study and succeed in this course. So how much time are we talking when we talk about putting in time? This is the recommended study time. If you Google recommended study time for university students, you will find this rule of thumb is posted just about everywhere. For every hour you're in class, you need to study 2 to 3 hours outside of class. So 2 to 3 hours working on the paper homework, the online quizzes, the projects. For every single hour you're in class. That's 3 to 4 hours total for every hour you're in class. But more importantly, the whole semester, PBR requires 40 hours of class time. So 40 hours and then 2 to 3 hours outside of class. So that's going to be 80 to 120 hours for the whole term. So over the next 8 weeks, you are going to be giving me between 80 and 120 hours of work outside of class in addition to the stuff that you're doing in class. And to break that down, that's going to be 10 to 15 hours every single week. So this week will be lighter. We won't have as much because we haven't gotten very far into the material. It's just more of an orientation. But The next week and the next week and the next week will be quite a bit to make up for that. So some weeks will be lighter, some weeks will be heavier, but on average, you're going to be spending 10 to 15 hours a week in class. So when I told this before and I didn't do the presentation, I would get, oh, okay, yeah, whatever, I'll do that, but I won't really do that because every professor says that, but then they might give 8 assignments that each can be done in half an hour, and I do 4 hours of work, and I do the entire course. That's not the case in this class. If you've seen all that I've been showing you, the online homework, the projects, the 3 types of paper homework, the online quizzes, you will probably get a sense that this class is going to be quite more involved, and it is. It really does take most people 10 to 15 hours a week. As a matter of fact, last term, quite a few people said it took them more than 15 hours a week. If it takes you more than 20 hours a week on average, come talk to me, and I will try to look at exactly what you're doing, how you're spending your time, and give you feedback on how you can cut time. But that's what this course is going to take. Most people 10 to 15 hours, some people 15 to 20. Hopefully it won't take anyone more than 20. There are a few who can do it in less than 10. But if you get too much less than 10, and you look at all of the people who've studied less than 10 hours a week consistently the whole term, most of them aren't going to pass. So I know that, other classes are bluffing when they say 2 to 3 hours for every hour you're in class, but I'm not bluffing. Please believe me. If you don't believe me right now, you will believe me in a second. So I do promise that most students who don't spend around 10 hours or more don't pass, and that's just more than 50%. There are some who score 30 on their math and 32 on their English ACT who can breeze through this class with 6 hours of work a week. Unless you're one of those who scored 30 on your math and 32 on your English ACT, you'll probably be spending more time than that. And this is the breakdown that I showed earlier of how and this is for 80 hours, so this is the bare minimum that each chapter should take. Are there any questions on that? Okay. And then we will start chapter 1, finally. 2 hours later, huh? So this is what I want you to do a mind map on, and if you want to draw the mind maps as we're going through this first section of chapter 1, that will be a good time-saving idea so that you won't have to do the mind maps outside of class, or you can at least get started on them and maybe finish them up outside of class. Did everybody get some pencils and some paper? Okay. And so this first chapter is actually titled the same as the title of your book. It's called Statistics, the Art and Science of Learning from Data. And the first chapter, of course, is nestled in the first part of the book. And this part talks all about gathering and exploring data. Gathering data is really focused in on chapter 4, but we'll talk a little bit about it in chapter 1 maybe. But particularly in chapter 4, exploring data, we're really kind of introducing you to the concept of data in chapter 1. And then exploring data in chapter 2 with how you represent it with charts and graphs, and with numbers like the mean, median, mode, range, standard deviation, that sort of thing. That's chapter 2. Chapter 3 will be the linear regression and association between two variables. So we start off with an example in this first section. And the example talks about what can statistics tell us about the world. So what sort of questions can we answer? And it turns out you can answer a whole bunch of questions with statistics. Statistics is really profound in its influence on the world. And so how can we evaluate evidence against global warming or even for global warming? Either one of those would be looking at statistics. Are cell phones dangerous? We could do statistical analysis on a study. What are the chances of a tax return being audited? Statistics can tell us that. How likely are we to win the lottery? Is there bias in appointing female managers? What hot streaks would we expect in baseball? How can we analyze whether a diet works or not? Are astrology predictions more accurate than guessing? Do more people believe in heaven or hell? And what predicts whether or not we are happy? All of these questions actually are answered with real data in the text. We won't go through all of them in this course, but we'll go through quite a few of them, and we'll answer these questions with real-world data that we've seen. So how can you investigate using data? That's this first section. So that should be your stencil image 1.1. How can you investigate using data? Yes. Oh, absolutely. So I'm not going to grade so much for neatness as I am for does it fill the whole page? Does it have the stencil image as the title of the section? Does it use lots of color? Does it use lots of pictures? Does it have all the terms? Those are the things I'm looking for. Not so much neatness or beauty, because I can't really draw. The mind maps I showed you were from a student, not from myself. So, I pick and chose what I wanted to show you. This is the learning objectives, and at the beginning of every single section, we'll have learning objectives. What do we want to learn in this section? So we want to understand the usefulness of data. We want to define statistics, and we want to talk about the three aspects of a study in this section. So again, all of these slides can be printed out, and you can go downstairs if you're in the lab section of the course. Even if you're not in the lab section of the course, Katrina will probably let you go downstairs and print them out. So data is information that we gather that will tell us something. And then we can gather it through experiments, and we can gather it through surveys. There would be no statistics if there weren't data. So data is the absolute essential element of statistics. And our statistics that we give are only ever as good as the data that we have. So that's why it's really important when you go out and collect your data in the surveys that you ask the questions the proper way, that you ask them in the right places and the right times and that sort of thing to reduce as much bias as you can. So there are two types of ways that you can collect data. You can collect it through experiments, or you can collect it through surveys. For obvious reasons, we're not going to be experimenting on people in this class. We will experiment at the end of, right before the midterm, we will experiment on some soda. That will be fun, I hope. But we won't experiment on people. But an example of how an official researcher might experiment on people, they might look at different types of diets and look and see if the diets are successful and how successful they are compared to each other. So the data that would be collected in this experiment would be the weight of the subjects before the diet and after the diet. And then as far as surveys go, you might try to survey to see the effectiveness of a Starbucks ad. So you might have an ad air at 3:05 p.m. today for Starbucks in the Nashville area. So you might look at all of the different Starbucks, look at their predicted volume without the ad, so make some sort of prediction. And companies do this all the time. That's how they staff, know how many people to put on staff, is they make predictions of how much sales they'll have. And then look at how much sales you actually had and compare those two. So that would be like your data. How much did sales improve because of the ad airing? Good. So here's our definition of statistics, and it's kind of defined like the name of the book. So you probably would see different definitions in different places, but this definition does work. Statistics is the art and science of learning from data. It's both an art and a science, and let's talk about the science. I think the science part is more obvious. A science is where you go and you observe something happening, and then you make conclusions on those observations. So you observe, measure, and record, and that's what you're going to do with your survey. And it's what you would do with experiments. You would do something to your subjects, but then you would observe, measure, and record what happens after you do that. So statistics is very much about observing, measuring, and recording, and that's the science of statistics. So very methodical and scientific. But at the same time, there's an art to statistics that most people don't think about. This course is very language intensive. So you've got to interpret the language of the problem in order to know what it's asking. So language is more of an art. Also, in interpreting your results, that is very much an art, because in every other math class that you're in, there is a right answer and it's the only right answer. But in statistics, there is no one single right answer, unless there are certainly better answers and worse answers, but you cannot say definitively that this is going to happen and predict that this is going to happen. We say with so much certainty, but we could be wrong. We could always be wrong. So there is an art to statistics. There's a very subjective nature to statistics. There is saying that this data would be better than this data because of these reasons. That asking the question this way would be better than asking the question that way because of these different biases. So that's very much an art, very subjective. There's certainly better art and worse art. There is, at the same time, better statistics and worse statistics, but the lines between what is good and what is bad are much more gray on the art side. And then you've got designing. So these are the elements of statistics, essentially the three elements: designing, analyzing, and translating. Designing the studies, setting them up, and that's what you're going to do for the pre-project report. You're going to design how you're going to collect the data. Analyzing the data that you've collected, and that's what you'll do in Project 1, and also to a lesser or to a greater extent even in Project 2, and then translating that data into knowledge and understanding. That really doesn't happen until Project 3, when we translate that data into what does this data really mean. We present the data in Projects 1 and 2, but we don't make any inferences about that data until Project 3. And then the three aspects of study, in my opinion, very much mirror the three elements of statistics. So you have design, analyze, translate. Here you have design, describe, which is sort of analysis, and infer, which is sort of translating it into knowledge and understanding. So design, plan how you're going to obtain your data, describe, summarize the data, and infer, you're going to make decisions and predictions based on what your data has told you. Again, designing is more Chapter 1 and 4. Describing is what we'll talk about in Chapter 2 particularly. And inferring is what we'll talk about in Chapters 8 and 9. So this is a more detailed, what does design mean? So designing is setting up and writing out exactly how you're going to conduct an experiment, exactly how you're going to conduct a survey. So our pre-project report is the design of our survey. And so here are two more examples for an experiment. Let's say you want to look at the effects of vitamin E on athletic strength. So the design would include, we're going to give people placebos and the real thing, vitamin E, and we're not going to tell them which is getting what. We're just going to tell them, here's the pills that you have to take. And then we're going to let them take that, and we're going to measure how much they were bench pressing before, measure how much they were bench pressing after, for example, and compare those two. So that's your design for this experiment. And you would try to design it so that it has the least amount of bias possible. So you wouldn't be telling people that they were getting the placebo. You wouldn't be telling people that they were getting the real vitamin E. You would just be getting it to them. For number 2, let's suppose you want to do a marketing survey. You want to make sure you're covering your entire market area. So make sure you're asking people, if it's 5 counties, make sure you're asking people in Cheatham and Davidson and Montgomery and Robertson County. Make sure you're asking a proportional amount of people in each of those counties to get the proper coverage. Make sure your questions don't cause any bias, any unnecessary bias. Make sure the way that you're going to ask them, whether it's calling them on the phone, going door to door, just going to a local gas station and trying to survey people that way, make sure the way that you're surveying is the least bias possible that you can afford. Now, sometimes, like for our purposes, we can't really afford to go door to door. That's a little too much to ask the students to go door to door and get 30 people to answer something. So we'll do congregated locations like the PX or gas stations or that sort of thing. The second aspect is to describe. And again, we do description in much more detail in Chapter 2, and that's where you're going to do charts and graphs and tables, histograms, box plots, all that sort of thing. So here are 2 examples, graphs showing all of the precipitation for Clarksville in each month of 2005. So it would have a bar of how many inches of precipitation we got for each month, for example. And then another example of a way to describe is just a single number. The average age of students in a statistics class is 25, for example. And then the third aspect of a study is inference. And the root word of inference is infer. And infer, when you infer something from someone, that means you're making a guess. It's an educated guess, so you're taking the data that you have and you're making a guess about what that data means. So I look at all of my data from last year and I say, I think this class will score between 65 and 85 somewhere for their average midterm grade. So I look at past data to sort of predict, infer, guess future data. And that's what inference is all about. The relationship between smoking cigarettes and getting emphysema. That would be an inference. We can't really prove that. 47% of registered voters in Illinois will vote in the primary this year in 2011. That would be an inference because we're using past data to guess that. And that's all of section 1.1. I'm going to go ahead and sort of open it up because for 1.2 and 1.3, I'm going to let you watch the videos. But I was going to open it up for questions, more questions. Again, the videos can be found right here, lecture and video, and you can click on the chapter 1 and scroll down to get 1.2 and 1.3. Also, to print out the lecture notes, you can go to Objectives and Tasks, click on chapter 1, and click for the lecture notes. And when they come up, you can print them out. And you can do that downstairs. Hopefully that lab is already open, but if not, Katrina will get it open. Let's see, where did that go? Let's see if it'll show us the whole thing here in a second. Yeah. This is the mind map that our other student did for section 1.1. So she has the central idea is the name of the section. So she has data branching off of it because we talked about what data was. And then she has some pictures that represent data. We collect data through surveys and experiments. So she has experimental type stuff that reminds her. It's a very personal thing. So something that would remind you of an experiment, something that would remind you of a survey, a picture that would do that. And then she also has statistics, an art and a science, and she's drawn a representation of art and a representation of science for her. And design, analyze, and translate. So she's drawn something that means design for her, something that means analyzing data, something that means translating data into knowledge for her. And then the three types of studies. So she's done study, and then there's design, describe, and infer. And she has drawn pictures and made a couple of notes. But really drawing the pictures, if you can draw a picture, if you can think of something that reminds you of design, and it may be, architecture, or it might be just something that's not literally meant, but something that reminds you of design, so that you have a picture image. I think that, they talk about photographic memory. I think all of us, to a small extent, have photographic memory, because if you think about all of the faces that you remember and recognize, we can remember 100 or 200 people at a time. And so we recognize their faces, their hair color, their eye color. We know when something's different. We know when they've had a haircut, and we may not even realize how much information we're storing visually, but we are storing a lot of information visually. And when you have this nice visual map of each section, you can remember the definitions of study and design and the translate and all of that stuff much more easily, and recall it much more easily when it comes to the actual exams. Others? Yes. The exams will be enormously like your quizzes. They're mostly multiple choice. I think they may all be multiple choice. Right. It will probably even have art and science in the name, because that's the way art and science have those three things. Other questions? It will have good, bad answers too, though, good, wrong answers. So if you don't know the definition and don't understand the definition, there will be some tricky things there. Right. And I actually want to see your mind map for 1.1. You don't have to give them all to me. But I want to see them and give you feedback on them. And again, it's not going to be, oh, this isn't pretty enough. It's going to be, you should probably use more color, or you should really fill the page more, or your central image should be, or you haven't branched out on this idea, or you haven't drawn enough pictures. Try to think of some more picture representations. So that's the sort of feedback I'm going to give, but I want to make sure we're all on the same page. So class on Tuesday, first of class on Tuesday, you can turn it in. Or if you want to give it to me now, you could give it to me now. Other questions? The online homework and the online quiz and the orientation homework are all due Sunday by midnight. You should do the mind maps because they'll help you with the quiz. And you should do the paper homework from your textbook because they'll help you with the quiz before you take the quiz. But I won't collect all of the mind maps. I'll just collect this first sample to make sure you're on the, kind of like the pre-project report, to make sure we're all on the same page. I won't really collect it and grade it until we have the midterm exam, and then I'll collect the homework from the first half, and then the final exam, I'll collect the homework from the second half.
The homework outlined on the syllabus, like, okay, you need to do this on this website, this on that website, this report.
Everything that is due is right here, and when it says this, it means the orientation homework is only under online homework, but the Chapter 1 homework is both online homework and paper homework. And the Chapter 1 quiz is, there's a description in the syllabus of everything that you'll need to do, but online homework, paper homework, and quizzes. And really there's an asterisk down here that says for each due date, the online homework, online quiz are due. Before taking the online quiz, you must obtain 80% or more on the online homework. The paper homework should also be completed before each quiz, but it's not going to be collected until the midterm and the final. You can choose the order of the online homework, but you should certainly do it before the quiz. Because really the quiz is going to be more similar to your mind maps and to your paper homework than it is to the online homework. Right, when you log into Course Compass, front and center will be what you see. Other questions? Yes. Who needs a group member? Doesn't have at least 5, and even if you have 5, we could add one more. This person also, if you want all guys, there's 3 guys at least, and girls if you want to join in. Okay, but I see 1, 2, 3 guys at least, and if anybody else wants to join them, that would be nice. So, if you want to go ahead and write down your group names, all of the names of the people in your group, and give that to me, I can add you to the group so that you'll have access to the Dropbox. You also have a nice discussion board that you can write to just your group members, so you can give them your ideas, attach files.